Good afternoon, everybody. We're here again, trying to record this outdoors today. Of course, it started raining in Southern California, but hopefully it's helping a little bit with the lighting issues that are happening behind me. But anyway, we have another great special guest today, Josh Schachnow. Hopefully I said that right. Josh, you're our first international, actually, no, sorry, our vendor is in London, but he does US immigration. But you're our first true non-US immigration person. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I'm honored to be on. So I'm not too far away. I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer. I'm based out of Toronto, and primarily what I'm working on now is Visto. It's a free portal helping Canadian international students and skilled workers from all over the world navigate the permanent residency process here in Canada.
Cool.
Awesome. And Josh, could you tell us a bit, how did you get into this business?
Yeah, I got into Visto itself because I've been practicing in Canadian immigration law for the last few years and just noticed that there was little to no innovation happening in Canada with regards to immigration, right? We all know about how friendly Canada is with regards to immigration and increasing numbers, the increasing plan in terms of what the government wants to do over the years. But nobody was really doing much to innovate the industry itself, how applications are filed and all that stuff. I got into immigration law about 2.5 years ago, almost by a fluke, because a good friend of mine introduced me to his father, who is an immigration lawyer and was getting into retirement, but still wanted to kind of work with a junior, basically continue working with and kind of mentor a junior. So that opportunity kind of fell into my lap, which I'm very thankful for, because if it didn't happen, I have no idea what area of law I'd be practicing. So I'm happy to be where I am.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I love that you do is your blog posts where you actually have conversations with people that are new to Canada and looking for opportunities. I mean, I think there's perhaps a slightly different dynamic in the US because of the fact that we don't have the express entry program where somebody could theoretically come to the US without a job. It's not as likely of a path. But why don't you tell us a little bit about how you decided to do that?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few factors. Number one, during my practice, I was primarily helping companies sponsor engineers and developers and stuff like that for a work permit, which requires a job. But while I had all that in my profile, I was getting messages every week on LinkedIn from engineers and other types of skilled workers, doctors, lawyers, you name it, all over the world saying, hey, I want to come to Canada. Can you help me? Now I'm not a recruiter. I can't help them find a job, but X amount of those people are eligible for express entry. Like you mentioned, luckily in Canada, it's a points-based system. Having a job really helps, but you do not need a job to be eligible to apply for it. After thinking, long and hard about how can we innovate in the Canadian space, it became clear in my head, at least, that Canada wants to bring in all of these immigrants, right? We need them. We need skilled workers if our economy is going to continue to grow. On the other end, you have hundreds of millions, if not billions of people, skilled workers around the world that would love to come to Canada. Really what's separating them is education, right? Is knowledge, right? Because there's a ton of people that are eligible that will probably have a high enough score, but they don't even know how to figure that out, right? So what can we create to bring both sides of this equation together? That's kind of what spawned the idea of Visto, which is a free platform. It helps guide you through the process. If you do want additional services, we have additional paid services. Some of our users choose to use them, some don't. It doesn't really matter to me either way. But the more people we can help, even if it's just educating them on whether this is a good option to consider or not, I consider that, I'm pretty happy if we can help a bunch of people just figure that out to begin with, right? Because that's the hardest part about immigration, at least from my experience, is just figuring out what are the options and which one is best, if any at all. Yeah.
I know, Artur, you and I have spoken a lot about your desire to be a connector for communities. Maybe I don't want to take your story from you, but listening to Josh about the experience in Canada, how does that compare to your own experience in the US?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what I want to do as well. Because Joshua came to the U.S. from Brazil, and my desire working with Ron is basically to connect Brazilians to the U.S. market and vice versa. So your story is pretty inspiring. I mean, what you've been doing is pretty. It relates a lot with what we want to do as well in the U.S.
Right. I would imagine though that there is more of a challenge just knowing the very little that I know about US immigration law. Like how much has that been a challenge strictly due to the regulations in place?
Right. I mean, right now for Americans to go to Brazil, it's kind of easier since last year, but the opposite's not true.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a challenge for Brazilians to navigate in the U.S. immigration system, but it's definitely doable.
Right. And I've noticed that this is more anecdotal. I can't speak to the statistics on this, but in the last year, call it year and a half, more H-1Bs reaching out to me and or US companies reaching out and saying, "Hey, we want to open up an office in Toronto or Ottawa or Vancouver or whatever for a variety of reasons, political, largely related to immigration, about how, and also cost. It's cheaper in Canada. They can bring their whole team to Canada, right? Any H-1Bs that are worried whether they're going to get a renewal or if they're ever going to get a green card, they don't have to worry about that in Canada, because if you're eligible, you can have your PR in 6 months in Canada.
Wow.
So it's like, it's night and day in terms of immigration. And so I'm kind of hoping that maybe the U.S. will catch on, and because it's sad to hear of all these amazing skilled workers and just people in general. They've moved to the U.S., they've settled, they've set up great lives, and they have no idea what could or couldn't happen to them from an immigration standpoint tomorrow.
I think that's there's a lot that we've talked about today that I want to continue maybe in a week or two. Especially, I would want to talk to you more about what you've done from kind of the innovation side of delivering a service that's not the traditional way that lawyers provide immigration in Canada. We're going through a lot of those changes in the U.S. as well. It's amazing to get the perspective. I mean, I think if you listen to the post that we put up yesterday, the person I was speaking with, his name is John Beely. We were getting really passionate about how you have to sue the federal government in the U.S. just to basically get what you should have had in the first place. So it's great to get the different perspective from Canada.
I didn't watch the video. I read the post.
Okay.
And just seeing the words immigration and sue government in the same paragraph, it's foreign to me, right? Because it's just, well, that process may happen a little bit more in terms of like family or non-economic type immigration applications in Canada. But in terms of economic applications and skilled workers, like that's a totally foreign concept.
Yeah.
So it is totally funny too, and true, because the other way from my perspective, is just like yours, how the fresh perspective can be very interesting.
So let's end it here for today, but definitely want to talk to you more about the innovation side on a future meeting. So thanks a lot, Josh.
More than happy to. Thanks for having me
Thanks,
on.
Josh.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, have a great day.